Hi, this is Dr. Scott, and today we're going to get into how tariffs actually work, why they're coming in right now. So, one of the things that I didn't realize, and I'm going to admit this, directly to everyone out here, is that I didn't realize that tariffs were going to be a thing. Exactly. I looked at this and thought, wow, I didn't see it as a possibility. We're going to show you how actually tariffs are, and I'm going to show you a video that's kind of interesting. But realize that tariffs have been around since the founding of our country. And Trump started to talk about the tariff issue, and he started to talk about it from the 1870s all the way through 1913. Okay. And then he started to put out these reciprocal tariff and other issues. And then there's a lot of confusion because they're going to go, it's going to kill the country. Now, it's something I didn't understand that was going to happen on the front end of this, of what he was trying to do. But it's a brilliant strategy, and we'll talk about why that happens. But let's just do this little video here so that you can kind of understand a little bit about what Trump was actually trying to do.
I agree. I mean, all President Trump is doing in dissent is they're implementing a strategy that was developed by Alexander Hamilton. Once you change your frame to the 1800s and how the America grew without income tax, think about what Henry Clay had to say. This all fits. Those that are hanging on to the past, and Clay Christensen wrote a wonderful book called The Innovator's Dilemma about those individuals that the status quo that will not let things go. Wall Street is hanging on to the past, and they need to start focusing on the future, that the United States has to evolve. The United States will evolve. It will be the leading economy. Their government will be the most efficient. And this is a wonderful time for long-term investors to pick off high-quality names when we had so much emotion.
So what he's talking about here is this. We've got this overall problem of people misunderstanding that Trump is talking about the 1800s. In that time frame, before we had the IRS, we had that we drove the situations from tariffs. We had plenty of money to be able to do that. But so here, let me show you a couple articles here and what he's been doing in the background with this. So he brings up an amendment of reciprocal tariffs. This is a few weeks ago. And I'm sorry, I did the wrong side of the screen. So he's bringing up an executive order. He's referring back to something on April 2nd, because he was saying that was the beginning of that time frame with this. And he's going after China more specifically. So some people have said, "Oh, well, you're wrong about the tariff." Like that Israel isn't getting that big of a tariff, or China isn't getting that big of a tariff, or whatever. And I'm like, you're missing the point. I mean, whether you want to disagree with me on the tariff, and then you're saying, well, Trump is lying about it. Come on. I mean, listen, even if you don't like the number of the tariff, promise you it is not that big of an issue. What it does is it brings the people to the bargaining table with it too. So he brings up these tariffs, and he says by deleting 34, and it appears to be inserting 84. Now I just want to pull this off the screen for half a second. 34. Where have I heard that? 34. 34 is the 17th letter. 34 is EBS. Have you thought about that one too? Is that a possibility that he's referring to the EBS in 34? And then he says we're going to reduce it down to I mean that we're going to do it as 17. Holy cow! If he didn't give you a comm, that's a comm in every sense of the word, right? Guys, see it all the way through here. So he's just telling you about some of these things. What it starts doing is balancing the system. Then he says, will modify them if they work to trade with us. But listen, if we're going to retaliate with you, against you, if you don't work with us. So we're going to have an alignment of this process. We're going to also work with the protect the fraud. And oh, sorry, that's a different one. But we're going to align this kind of system. So we are going to make sense of the systems that are out there. And let me show you this little video here.
So by now, you probably heard everything under the sun.
You might have to turn your volume up.
Tariffs are doing to the stock market. But when Trump was asked today, point blank, about the stock market, he shrugged and smiled and said, "It's working." Now, if you know, you know. Allow me to break this down. Revenues from the S&P 500 are 41% foreign-based. That's huge. So when you're looking at multinational companies that are going to be hit with this tariff, they're scrambling. Let's just take Nike, for example, because they're a huge multinational company. Nike stock is not doing well. Now, the only thing that the shareholders and the CEO of Nike are concerned about is obviously their stock. Now, if Nike was to stay competitive in the U.S. market with these tariffs, do you really think they're going to increase their prices 25% to the consumer? That would be asinine. Why? Well, if they increase their prices to 25% to the consumer, people won't be buying Nikes nearly as much as they did. And if they don't buy Nikes as much as they did, with their stock value plummeting, they're screwed. So what will Nike do? First of all, they're not going to pass on all of the tariffs to the consumer. They will absorb a lot of these tariffs. Second, they can't avoid these tariffs. They have no choice but to bring that manufacturing back to the United States. Now, where's the evidence of this? Well, Ford is already doing this. So is Toyota. Ford is offering employee pricing to every car. Employee pricing is like 10 to 20% cheaper than the invoice pricing. Toyota right now is doing a massive social media campaign to let the consumer know which cars in their brand are made in the United States so they can sell more cars. You see, when you think like a corporation, you understand what's going on. Right now, a lot of this fear is coming from the countries to where these corporations have homes.
So what he's talking about is that for instance, they've raised the prices dramatically on cars, or they've raised prices, for instance, on a cell phone. I want you to think about this for a second. In 2006, you could buy a cell phone from a dealer, or from Verizon, for instance, and the dang good cell phone, maybe you could buy it outright for $60, or with a new contract, $20, or actually get a new one, just get it for free for a 2-year deal, right? Then Apple comes up and it's a $500 new excuse me, new iPhone. $500. It was a massive jump in price. Now, then 10 years later, the iPhone is $1,000. Some iPhones are $1,500. Have iPhones improved that dramatically over the time frame? Well, of course they've improved, but is it exponentially improved in that way? Like, holy cow. And obviously all the other, the Androids are incredibly expensive in this kind of way. And you're going to, and so they say to you, for instance, the Apple phone would be $20,000 because of the Chinese tariff of 104%. And I go, hold on a second. You think that Apple would actually sell sell an iPhone for $20,000? They would sell 0 iPhones. You see, they can't possibly do that. Think about like Nike, as he was talking about here. Over the years, I mean, think about in the 80s, a Nike was, I mean, 20, 30, 40 bucks. And now people are spending $400 on a Nike. Where's the profit margin in here? Is it possibly through the roof? And if you're increasing that price because of that, I mean, 100%, are they going to sell it for $800 with that? Or have they been overpricing this dramatically anyway? See through the silliness in here, okay?
These countries do not want these companies to move. The only way to hurt a mega corporation is to hit them in the pocket. Now, to the bleeding heart liberal, this should be good news because this is the best way to stick it to the corporations. Back to Nike. If you're a Nike and you're getting hit with 25% tariff, and you still need to be competitive in the U.S. market, the last thing you will do is raise your prices on these Air Jordans or any type of sneaker. If you did so, your stock would plummet even. Back into the United States is to punch them in the gut. And this is exactly what's happening with the stock market. The stock market is reflecting the punch to the gut to every single mega corporation that is operating in foreign lands but are registered in the United States. These companies have no choice but to come back to the United States. Otherwise, they will price themselves out of the market.
So guys, what this is actually doing for the world is that it's making them compete in the areas that it's relevant relative to. So for instance, like if you were to think about demographics, like I look at demographics all the time. And by the way, good companies look at demographics. Demographics. You place a business in an area that you want to serve. For instance, you're not going to place a Mexican restaurant in a place that never eats Mexican food. Now, that's a little hard to say, but because almost everyone loves to eat Mexican food, but you're not going to do that necessarily in some places. And so you look at like an oversaturation or an undersaturation or even usage in that way. And so you're always looking for that capability. Right now, if you're not able to serve the customer and your prices are going to just about ready to get hit, you'll move your factory right to the customer so that you can serve the customer and get the prices under capability. It's a really simple economic fix. Guys, it is going to be okay. I know it's difficult to imagine. I know that you look at the stuff and go, what is he doing? It is going to be okay. It is a long game that he's doing upon this, but this has nothing to do with NESARA. This is about fixing how the world interacts with one another. This is actually part of the NESARA-GESARA kind of stuff, a balancing of all of the systems. And I don't doubt one thing. One country makes something that the other country needs. The other country makes something that company A needs. So they start to have a balanced trade agreement back and forth. Forget about America for a second. So country A makes something that country B likes. Country B makes something that country A likes. And they start to find a way to have a balanced level of tariff back and forth, that they have a minor tariff between the two of them, or minor to nothing. And then yet when it comes to things that, the other country goes, hey man, we make that. We don't really want to have you bring that into the country. And if you do bring it in, we're going to probably charge you a 10 or 15% tariff, because we want the people who make it in our country to be favored. That's what you're supposed to do. You guys should understand this is a great thing. And what this does, see, this is actually talking against the people who are bringing up the concept of the UBI. Oh, we're supposed to get all of our money, back toward us. No, what Trump is doing is bringing in amazing jobs for the people. This is about jobs all over the place. Great jobs. People need to be able to work and work well and have great things, because what those jobs have been doing in the past, what those companies have been doing, like Nike, is they've been taking the great jobs and putting it in China, where they use communist propaganda, and they bring slave labor and basically have slave wages, and Mongolia and China and all these other places, and India that have just slave wages. And then what happens is that now the people in those different countries are modernizing, and their currency is coming up, and they need to make something correct. So they need to start doing good things to their own citizens, because communism is going away as well. See, this is a good thing for all of them. And so the manufacturing, the demographic is saying, hey, listen, if you guys like the Nikes, we're going to go to where the people who buy it is. And that's just the way it works. And so if a country is more, it needs more agrarian work, well, then let's go to that country and let's do more agrarian kind of work, or whatever that might be. So I'm just telling you, there's going to be really cool things, and there's going to be a lot of balancing, but the tariff actually is an amazing situation that's going to happen for you. So guys, you got to be calm with this stuff. It's going to happen, and it's going to happen well. But I know that Nasara is not being pushed off. Nasara is coming. Thanks so much.